I've just finished my debut novel, and today I'll be sharing the one thing that I'll be doing before I start the process of reaching out to agents. Hello everyone, I'm Marguerite Fora. I am a rom-com enthusiast, an aspiring author, and quietly thrilled whenever I read a book where the protagonist is older than 28. Through my podcast, I've had the chance to chat with writers, BookTok and Bookstagram strategists, and literary agents. Basically anyone who can teach me more about the publishing world from the inside. One question I've asked agents directly is what a debut author should do before they start their querying process, that is, reaching out to agents. And today I'm going to share what I learned, plus how I plan to put it into action using Fiverr, the sponsor of today's video, all to give myself the best shot of landing an agent and hopefully a book deal. But first, let me tell you about the two biggest hurdles I've faced as a debut author. Ones I know I'm not alone in, and how I'm using the advice from literary agents to tackle them head on. The first problem, word count. Although I've finished my novel, it's just under 40,000 words, which falls short of the typical 50,000 to 100,000 word range for romance books. Now, some of my favorite books are on the shorter side, and honestly, sometimes I feel like authors stretch their stories just to hit a word count. Shorter novels often feel tighter and more intentional, but even though I feel like I've got a slick first draft, 40,000 words is still too short. So I'll tell you how I plan to address this, but after I get to my second hurdle. Now, my second challenge is more nuanced. You see, I've had close friends offer to read my manuscript, and while I'm so grateful for it, it also makes me nervous. You see, I only get one chance to make a good first impression, and I want to give my family, my friends, my beta readers more than just a first draft. And while their support means so much to me, they might not be the right readers for my genre, and they may not actively know what agents are looking for. Fortunately, both of these issues tie in beautifully with the advice that I got from literary agents when I asked them what a debut author should do before they start reaching out.
Trying a trusted editor, finding one who you trust, whether you're paying that person or whether it's someone who you know is a voracious reader and is going to be critical.
I also obviously recommend that you get second reads if you want to hire a professional, or if you have friends and family, or if you are part of the publishing community and you find other authors and beta readers to look over your book, like just get a couple of extra eyes on it.
I do think it's very helpful to have beta readers and critique partners to kind of get some outside feedback and have someone else tell you if they also think it's ready to go.
So it's clear that literary agents expect a version of your manuscript that has had more than your eyes only go through it. So whether you decide to give it to friends or family, or like me, an editor, it really helps to have a second opinion on your work before you start reaching out. So if you want to use an editor, I'm now going to spend the next portion of the video telling you how I go about finding my editor and what exactly I look for when it comes to deciding on which editor I'm going to use. Now, the place that I go to find my editor is Fiverr. I've used Fiverr personally and professionally throughout the years, so it seemed like a natural choice for me to also look for an editor there as well. Not only am I going to tell you how I find an editor, but I'm also going to show you how the editor that I chose to work with delivers feedback, just in case you're a little bit unsure of what the feedback process entails. It's not that scary. I know I was a little bit intimidated when I received my first set of feedback, so hopefully this is going to paint a picture of what it is that you're likely to receive. But first, let's start with how I found my editor. When I hit the 10,000 word mark in my debut novel, I knew I wanted to see this idea through to the end. But I also needed confirmation from someone who understood my genre that I was on the right track. I specifically wanted a developmental editor. This is somebody who could help me shape the big elements of my story. Developmental editors typically focus on things like structure, pacing, character arcs, and plot coherence. They don't really focus on grammar or spelling. It could help to think of them as somewhat of a story coach that helps you lay down a proper foundation before you go in and polish it with correcting spelling or grammar. Now, when it comes to the type of person I wanted, I knew I wanted someone whose tone aligned with the feeling that I want my book to evoke. And the tone I'm specifically going for is warm and lighthearted. And this is how I landed on Cassandra. I find that you can tell a lot about an editor from the way that they present themselves in their profile. Cassandra's write-up on Fiverr immediately gave me the sense that she got the tone that I was going for. And honestly, this process feels a little bit like the early stages of dating, because when you are messaging an editor to see if they have capacity for your project, if they like the genre that you're writing in, I mean, all of this gives you a sense of how they respond to you, how quickly they respond to you. And it could help you build a level of trust that you might feel that you need in order to share something as vulnerable as a first draft. Now, for me, I'm typically proud of my first draft, but I'm also aware that I have blind spots. And so asking somebody to highlight my blind spots means that I need to trust them so that I don't feel attacked with their feedback. I feel more like their feedback is helping me go in the direction that I want to go. So there is a lot of trust involved for me because it is a vulnerable process. And that's why I sort of liken this stage of finding an editor to finding a partner that you can see yourself completing this process of finishing your book with. But one of the other things that I really enjoy about using Fiverr as a platform is that you can see the reviews from other writers who have used editors. And this gives you a feel for how these editors have shown up for their past clients. So it can either reaffirm your decision or maybe raise some warning bells. But I was more than happy with Cassandra, so I looked forward to doing a sample, the first 10,000 words with her, just to get an idea of her feedback. And wow, I made a good choice because I fell in love with her feedback. Her notes made me smile, they made me laugh, they encouraged me, and they also inspired me to see this story through in its entirety. So for me, working with her on the smaller sample first gave me the confidence that she is the person that I would like to see this process through in its entirety. And you might find that different editors might be better suited to different projects that you're working on, because I'm working on a romance book, and just because of the vibe Cassandra gives off and the type of feedback that she gave me, I just felt like she was a perfect fit for this project. And so when it came to working on the rest of the book, it took me quite a while, a couple of months to finish the story, but I eventually did finish it. And when I reached the end of my story, which was still very short, like I mentioned, 40,000 words, I was confident to send her my entire manuscript to get feedback that would hopefully give me some ideas of what I could perhaps add to the story so that I could just chunk it out a bit more to at least get to 60,000 words. So I have at this point sent off my manuscript and I will be receiving her feedback shortly. So when I receive the feedback, I'm going to give you an idea of what her feedback looks like. And I'm also going to just share some notes that she gave me, which could be helpful to you if you're in a space where you're looking for an editor or if you're curious about what mistakes I make in my writing. I've got my email, my feedback's here. Let me take you behind the scenes of how my developmental feedback is delivered. So Cassandra gives me a developmental report, and then she also gives me a document with inline comments on my actual manuscript. Personally, I always like to start with a developmental report. Here I get a bird's eye view with regards to the potential of my actual story. And luckily, it seems like I'm onto something here because her feedback was genuinely positive. And there's a lot of words that she used that encouraged me that I'm onto something, as opposed to other words she could have used, which would have given me an idea that she's being polite with regards to the strength of my actual story. So she breaks down my strengths. She gives areas of development. She talks about the character arcs and motivation. She gives some general comments, and then she also answers questions I posed when I originally sent through my manuscript. So my strengths would be dialogue and plot. I seem to find my way in a story through how people communicate as well as through the events that occur. However, my weaknesses would be sensory details. And if I can be completely honest with you, I hope nobody judges me for this, but those are the parts that I scan through when I'm reading a book. Like, for some reason, I don't get hung up on the sensory stuff. I'm more curious about what's going on and how it's impacting people as opposed to what things smell like or feel like. However, I do respect that. And I do respect authors who have that come naturally to them, because that does not come naturally to me at all. Now, when it comes to her addressing my questions, I have to give Cassandra loads of credit here because she doesn't just answer my questions, she also gives me ideas. And if you're an author who finds yourself stuck in a certain place, it's nice having somebody that doesn't just point out your problems. It's fantastic having somebody that gives you some solutions to your problems. And I feel like that's what she does. And it is not lost on me at all. But like I said, she also provides inline notes as well. And this is something that I will be reviewing at a later stage. I'll just give you a quick glimpse of what this might look like. But this is not something that I'll be going over today or in the next few days. But this is something I only approach in the next phase. And for me, the next phase is a block of time that I allocate towards taking this book to the next level. And that's not something I just do on the fly. I typically close off a week or two and I just focus on these notes that she's given me. So what I do from now until then is I just sit with her editorial report. I'm somebody who really enjoys feedback and who enjoys having somebody point out my blind spots. So when I hear the areas that I could improve on, I like to sit with those areas for a while and just let ideas ebb and flow as they wish without pressuring myself to have solutions immediately for those problems. I'm also in a phase of life right now where my day job is really hectic. And I'm also finishing a 30-day social media challenge. So I'm just going to ride out the intense work wave as well as close off that 30-day challenge. And after that, I will be prioritizing this next phase of my book. And I'm so excited. I literally cannot wait. So if you're in a space where you are considering working with an editor and you'd like to explore some of the options that are available to you on Fiverr, you are welcome to use my code at checkout, Dream It, Do It, and that will give you 10% discount off your first order. If you're interested in working with Cassandra, I've also linked her in my description, so you can just reach her directly. And good luck. If you're in the space where you're thinking of working with an editor, it just shows how far along this process you are of putting your debut novel together or your second or third novel together. So I'm really excited for you and thank you for spending your time with me. Good luck. I'll see you in a future video. Bye.